So today I have with me Commodore Shailendra Singh, Sena Medal Gallantry.
The Navy generally had not more than 10 operational sea Harrier pilots.
The slope and the entire operations is on the shoulders of 10 people.
I started my journey, educational journey, in a Hindi medium. पहला मेरा education हुआ एक सरकारी स्कूल में, जहाँ पर टीचर के पास टेबल थी और कुर्सी थी और हमारे पास टाट पट्टी भी नहीं थी. While doing so, I got a call from other aircraft where the leader was there. He said, eject, eject, eject. So I saw 10,000 feet and thereafter I ejected. And I saw the parachute opening. And thereafter I was wondering where the aircraft is gone. I was flying at the speed of 420 knots and we spotted the enemy and we turned towards them very hard, heard the explosion of the aircraft crashing. We were firing bombs on the target at the range.
That means you guys are stalwarts of the Navy, Sea Harrier pilots, this entire group.
कि जैसे कि आप देखेंगे कि किसी भी वॉर में सबसे पहले रनवे के ऊपर हमला होता है कि रनवे को डिस्ट्रॉय कर दो तो इनके एयरक्राफ्ट उड़ नहीं पाएंगे. पाकिस्तानी और INS maritime reconnaissance aircraft who come and snoop on you as to what is your aim, where are you headed, the entire fleet is headed. So anytime we find them within 200 nautical miles from the ship, we used to track them and then jump at them.
फौजी पहले हमेशा दूसरों के बारे में सोचता है, खुद के बारे में नहीं सोचता है.
That's the beauty, that's what we are taught. I started my touch with the military as NCC cadet in my school days. I said, is there any NCC appointment? Ultimately, when I became DDG, where I could make a change.
काफ़ी लोग बात करते रहते हैं फाइटर पायलट्स. इसके पहले भी आई हैव रिलीज्ड वन एपिसोड विद फाइटर पायलट, विंग कमांडर अभिजीत गोखले. ही वाज अ MiG-21 फाइटर पायलट. But there is some difference between an Air Force fighter pilot and a naval fighter pilot. As you all know about Top Gun, and if you guys have heard about Captain Sullenberger. So, eccentricity कुछ ज़्यादा ही extra होती है as far as fighter pilots are concerned. Not denying special forces too. बट मैं तो कहता हूँ कि एक्सेंट्रिसिटी थोड़ी सी होनी ही चाहिए अगर आपको वैसे भी फौजी बनना है तो. एंड जैसे जैसे थोड़ी सी बढ़ती जाती है देन यू गेट इनटू दी स्पेशल आर्म्स. सो टुडे आई हैव विद मी कॉमोडोर शैलेंद्र सिंह, नौसेना मेडल गैलेंट्री, a direct entry officer who rose to get into one of the finest streams of the Navy, naval aviation. The few who were chosen to become Sea Harrier pilots, the vertical takeoff and landing. Welcome to the set, sir.
Thank you, Nikhil.
How do you find the set, sir?
Amazing. I mean, I can identify certain badges which I used to wear, and something very similar to what Navy also gives you.
So, sir, vertical takeoff and landing. And like you mentioned, sir, at any given point of time, how many operational pilots did Navy have Sea Harrier ke?
Our Navy has got a little peculiar system wherein an executive officer, whether he's a pilot or observer, has to do sea time because he's from the executive branch. So therefore, you get away from the aviation for some time to meet your mandatory requirements of sea time, and that keeps you away from the operational squadron. So because of that, Navy generally had not more than 10 operational Sea Harrier pilots at any given time available to the squadrons.
The slope and the entire operations is on the shoulders of 10 people.
Correct.
Entire Indian naval air operations then those days.
Fighter operations.
That's quite a remarkable feat, right, sir? So would you like to walk us through your early days, early career? Like, how did you choose to join the Navy, after having completed agriculture engineering?
Because मेरे पिताजी जो थे वो ऐसी सर्विस में थे जहाँ पर उनकी छोटी छोटी जगह पर ट्रांसफ़र होता था और वो भी हर 1.5-2 साल में. He was a civil judge, class 2, and I was the eldest, so I bore the brunt of his early service life. And तो पहला मेरा एजुकेशन हुआ एक सरकारी स्कूल में जहाँ पर टीचर के पास टेबल थी और कुर्सी थी और हमारे पास टाट पट्टी भी नहीं थी. तो वहाँ से शुरू है और धीरे धीरे जब पिताजी का प्रमोशन होता रहा, he rose to higher ranks and we shifted to bigger place. So my sister got admission into English medium schools, but since my roots were still stuck in Hindi medium. It was very difficult for me to uproot myself and transplant into a different environment. That took a little bit of courage and a little bit of preparation on my own side. But it was not so difficult. James Headley Chase and Robert Ludlum, these are the novels I read without learning or without understanding much of it initially. And by the time I was through with my 10th novel, I was quite comfortable with the language. And that's what took me to college, engineering college. And by the time I had lost the fear of the language, so I could converse in both the languages and dictions that I could come across. And then after having done engineering, I got a job as assistant manager. But while finishing my final years of college, I had appeared for UPSC exam.
The Command Defense Services.
The Command Defense Services. Actually, it was applied to go home. My dad was posted that time at Bhopal, and I was studying in Jabalpur. And when I asked for the leave from the college, they didn't give me. So I said, the best way is to apply for this exam, and that will give me opportunity to go to Bhopal. So there was no preparation, to tell you the truth. And it was just basics. So I appeared for it. And luckily got selected. But I didn't know about it till a telegram landed up at my doorstep saying that you got an interview in 36 hours. And this telegram was posted in an envelope from my previous address in the hostel by some hostler who had received it.
So where was this interview called?
It was in Varanasi, SSB, Air Force Selection Board.
So this was a direct thing into naval aviation?
Yeah, that time Navy had a scheme to induct aviation cadets directly into aviation with a little introduction of the Navy in the Naval Academy for 3.5 months, followed by small aviation capsule at Kochi, at Safna, which is School for Naval Airmen. Then from there on, you are with the Air Force for 1 year. If you are flying fighters, if you're flying helicopters, again it was 1 year, and so was for the transports. So, but at different locations. So I did that, and thereafter I joined the aviation. So early life went off like that. Other than that, so uprooting from that secure job and coming to aviation where you could be grounded because career ends there for the aviation cadet unless he prefers to join Surface Navy as a naval officer. So that was a big decision point which I negotiated.
So what were you flying, sir, in the AFA initially?
AFA, we were flying Kiran's, Kiran Mark 1, it's called. And that was basic stage. And during that tenure of my training, I had a similar incident as you would have seen in a movie called Vijeta. So I did go for my solo spin check, and the aircraft did not recover despite me trying normal recovery method and emergency recovery method. The aircraft continued in the spin, and we were told that if the aircraft does not recover till the time you hit 10,000 feet, punch out. Punch out means eject. So I saw 10,000 feet, and thereafter I ejected. So when you eject, like Wing Commander Gokhale must have told you, but these are two different seats. He had rockets, I believe 16 rockets in his seat. But this one, like a shotgun, it's got 2 cartridges.
Okay.
Cartridges means cartridges. As big as one glass is one cartridge. And it fires, it's called gun, ejection gun. So the seat experiences 40 G momentarily. 40 G means your weight becomes 40 times. And that is the force which nobody can sustain. As he said, that 9 to 9.5 G is the maximum a human body can withstand. So you black out. means you are unconscious. Your entire blood from the brain drains down, so you become unconscious at that point in time. By the time I opened my eyes, a lot of air and all that, and there was this big shock, and I saw the parachute opening, and thereafter I was wondering whether the aircraft's gone. So I tried to turn using my straps, tried to turn left, right, but I didn't know how to maneuver that parachute. That parachute not meant for maneuvering. Very little maneuvering you can do, in the sense at the time of landing, but you can't do those turns and swings like you see on the more agile parachutes, the hobby clubs. So I tried turning, twisting, and suddenly one strap came loose, and I was shit scared. I was happening. I'm unstrapping myself. But then I found smoke rising down below with the orange flame. I knew this is the aircraft because I had seen a crash earlier. So continued what was drilled in my training time. I came to 4. So I took all those posture and I tried to land like a normal parachutist would land. Lo and behold, there was no strength in the limbs because of this ejection force. So like a sack of potato, I fell. But then luckily, there was no damage to the body, except for minor scratches here and there. And when I got up, the people rushing towards me. It was next to Sangareddy Pit in Andhra. So people were rushing to me from nearby villages who saw me landing and heard the explosion of the aircraft crashing. And they found me. I had gotten up, disengaged myself from the parachute. And there was a guy there who reached me first with a bicycle. So that time I used to smoke. So I asked him, can I bum a smoke from you? So that was a big relief. Oh, God, I'm alive.
So then, sir, you still continued in fighter stream? Reclassification has to happen then, sir. Or classification was not there?
At that time, we were doing basic stage, and I was doing pretty well in my basic stage. So I was given an option to quit or continue. I said, I'm continuing. And since I was doing well, I got selected into fighter stream, and journey began then on.
So then, sir, after this, where did you go?
After this, we went for the advanced course at Bidar. That
as
is
a midshipman?
As a midshipman. So as a midshipman, we went there, and luckily at that time, everybody was watching Top Gun. So, and we were fighting that we were not allowed to participate in any competition to win a trophy because being naval cadets. Whereas our counterparts from the same course, from the Air Force, could participate in a competition to win a trophy. So finally they opened up a trophy called Best in Gunnery, that is air armament. So, and they aptly named it Top Gun after this movie. Luckily, I was the first recipient of the trophy, and the motion continued in various fields where I won some awards on the way to my career progression.
So Jerry Bruckheimer and वो गाने चलते रहते होंगे ना सर में?
True.
Optimus, Top Gun.
Yeah. It was good fun.
Somebody thought of making a movie on naval fighter pilots.
Yeah, and that too very nice.
Yeah, very nice. And then, sir, after this, then you were.
So after this, I came to INS Hansa, and in Hansa, the set pattern was that first you fly Kirans, and in the naval environment, which is over sea. So I flew that. Since I was aviation cadet and as well as executive officer, it was mandated that I do my sub-lieutenant's courses, so which I did in Cochin, and followed by watchkeeping on INS Trishul. At that point of time, it was based in Visakhapatnam, and that was a ship that was used while I was a watchkeeping officer on that. Deployed for withdrawal of IPKF from Jaffna. So that was the first operational exposure I had when we went with entire fleet to Jaffna and withdrew General Kalkat on board my ship and the entire team. That was the final withdrawal of IPKF from Sri Lanka.
The last disengagement.
Correct.
I remember this. Oh, we had Brigadier Sanjay Thapa also on the set.
I see.
He was the one in the thick of Jaffna operations there.
I see.
So, yeah, but I want the audience to understand that key aviation branch is an executive branch, and as far as Navy is concerned, Navy is all about ships.
True.
So, for your career progression, whether you are a marine commando or you're a fighter pilot or you're a chopper pilot or you're a transport pilot, you are supposed to come back to ships and finish your mandatory sea time and sea tenure so that you can progress upwards in the career. And for that, you need to understand watchkeeping, because everything at sea boils down to watchkeeping. At the end of the day, there are 350 people on board a ship of a destroyer class, and that one guy who's standing on the watch as a watchkeeping officer has the key to everything, apart from the CEO and the XO. And he is responsible for the safety of the entire ship, whether in the harbor or at sea.
Correct.
So that must have been really a wonderful experience. Sir.
Exactly. That was, we call it airmanship at 5 knots.
Airmanship at 5 knots, right. So then, sir, after that, you came back to squadron?
Yeah, after that I came back to squadron, but before that I had to have exposure to faster aircraft, which was given to us by the Air Force at 20 Squadron Air Force at Kalaikonda, where I flew Hunters for 1 year. And I had 2 emergencies during that period as well. So that emergency was, first one was that we were firing bombs on the target at the range, air range. And Hunter by the time had become very old. So the wirings inside were a little brittle. At times there will be short circuit or something. So what happened that I was carrying 4 bombs, practice bombs. There were no explosives or explosive inside. Yes, a little bit of explosives were there, which to create flash and smoke so that you know as to where the bomb went. So I was carrying 4 such bombs for the range, and I got airborne while going towards the range. One of the bomb fell off without me making any switches or firing anything. It just fell off. Now when I went to the range, the range safety officer told me that 1 bomb has gone from your aircraft. Please return back. Something is wrong with your aircraft. So I returned back. Now this emergency was of that nature that while flying and there was no jerk, 1 bomb has gone down. Now when I land, when there's going to be jerk, rest of the 3 are going to explode next to the wing. So it was quite, and I tried to jettison them. That means you can jettison them while in such a manner that they don't explode. They go just like a dud stone. But it won't work. So I tried everything on the range to drop them before landing, but they won't. So they were stuck to me. But you never know, since you already tried. Some switches have been got operated, but may not be completely. So you don't know whether they will drop off as you land or not. But then decision had to be taken. So I landed luckily. None exploded and none dropped. But the guy on whose hut that bomb fell was very thankful to me. Yeah, he was not in the hut. That was disused hut. And he claimed that he had a trunk load of saris worth some 50,000 rupees lying in there, and claimed that money from the Air Force. Thereafter, a lot of villagers came to me subsequently, "Sir, when are you flying next?"
Okay. So this was Hunters.
This was Hunters, the first emergency. And then there was another emergency I can tell you on Hunters. That was life-threatening in the sense I was doing combat sortie, 2 aircraft versus 2 aircraft. And as I told you, the aircraft had become old.
This was where, sir? But
Same Kalaikonda.
Kalaikonda.
So aircraft had become old. So there was all the controls on these fast aircraft are hydraulic. So they don't get the load. Just like a steering, The steering is lighter in the hydraulic steering, powered steering is called. So it has got power controls. And I was flying at the speed of 420 knots. And we spotted the enemy and we turned towards them very hard. It was about 4G turn, along with my partner on pair. Now in that turn, when I wanted to come out of the turn, the aircraft won't come out of turn because the controls got stuck. Now we knew that certain times this kind of emergencies happened before, and some people perished in these conditions. But there was a procedure to that. You switch on to the manual control and have to recover the aircraft and come back, and that's called emergency landing because you never land with the manual controls. So I tried that, but still it won't work. Why? Because problem was something else. But the controls were stuck. So aircraft continued going like this and dipping all the time because you can't sustain that rate of turn, and speed is increasing beyond 525 knots, about closer to 1000 kilometers per hour, and rushing towards the ground. I tried all my strength on the joystick. I was wondering whether the joystick will come into my hand because so much of pressure was being applied. But I realized that it is not moving in literal sense, but the pitch was working. The aircraft pitch was working a little. So I said, if I pull on the stick, then probably I'll come out on the other side with the nose up. And that's what happened. I pulled out on the other side, nose went up. As the nose went up, while doing so, I got a call from other aircraft where the leader was there. He said, eject, 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 because he could see I am rushing towards the ground. So I pulled up the nose up and speed started dropping. So the load on the controls became less and less. Then I could shake them more vigorously. And something happened, and again controls came back to normal. Normal means now I was not in the powered control, but manual control was available. And when I headed towards the base and I recovered the aircraft, we landed. As I landed, everybody came, you were told to eject. Why don't you eject? I said, sir, I was not sure of the ejection seat will be working or not because in combat you have to loosen your straps so that you can turn your shoulders and look back as to where the enemy is. So with a loose strap, if I eject, I am a dead meat. So I couldn't. Anyway, so once they opened the panel of the controls, there was a big bolt which fell off.
Oh.
So this bolt was somehow left in the insides of the aircraft during the manufacture time, not at the time of maintenance, because this bolt is used only during manufacture. So that bolt got stuck in the lateral control system, and because of my pull and push, it sheared off. So there was shear mark on that, and they realized it was because of push and pull, it sheared off from there, and luckily aircraft as well as I survived. So that was that emergency in the Hunters. But then training went off well. From there I went on to fly Chetaks and INS Hansa, because we need to learn as to how a fixed wing aircraft which is going to flying at, let's say, 400 to 500 nautical miles per hour coming to zero speed in the air. So to get that feel, you need to fly helicopters for 10 hours. So we flew Chetaks.
That was again in Hansa?
It was in Hansa.
Hansa. तो अभी 3 इमरजेंसी हो गई है.
या
एक इजेक्शन था और उसके आगे और 2 इमरजेंसी हो गई. 3 इमरजेंसीज आर डन. Now we are left with 4 guys, okay? 7 emergencies. So you understood hovering and then you graduated to Sea Harrier.
Then I graduated to Sea Harrier. And Sea Harrier training was very nice, and I had the opportunity to land on board Vikrant and do my DLQ there, that is deck landing qualification, before Vikrant was decommissioned.
So sir, let's talk more about Sea Harrier.
All right.
Let's talk more about what is this aircraft, why did they make it, and what is so special about it, and why did Navy choose to get it, and then फिर 10 ही लोग हैं, तो है भी नहीं. That means you guys are stalwarts of the Navy, Sea Harrier pilots. This entire group.
I won't call it stalwarts, but then I'd say We were the people who were flying Harriers at that point in time and
Yeah.
providing the air defense to the fleet.
That's too humble of you. Yeah, so
It's all teamwork.
Yeah.
So, Sea Harrier aircraft concept was actually developed by the Brits, and when they were flying very powerful propeller-driven aircraft, which could hang in the air purely on propeller speed. So they realized that if we develop an aircraft which can hang in the air and land thereafter, probably we don't require a runway, big runway. And as you must have seen on the big aircraft carriers of US Navy, there's a big runway there, and there's a catapult to pull the aircraft to that speed where it can get airborne. So all that is machinery becomes an additional load on the aircraft carrier. But if you have this kind of aircraft which can land on a spot and take off in a very short distance, you can have a smaller carrier. And a smaller carrier is more maneuverable. It can carry probably more load in comparison to volume versus weight-wise ratio of any other conventional carriers. So with that concept, Brits started designing this particular aircraft, and they realized the prowesses of deflecting jet efflux. So आपने देखा होगा जेट इंजन में जब आप एयरलाइंस में ट्रैवल करते हैं सडनली जोर से आवाज़ आती है ना लैंड करने के बाद में, जहाँ पे वो पीछे से नोजल्स को और या फिर जेट एफ्लक्स को रिवर्स में डाल देता है, ताकि वही जेट जो कि आपको आगे ले जा रहा था वो आपकी स्पीड को कम करना शुरू कर देता है, क्योंकि इसका डायरेक्शन हमने चेंज कर दिया. तो वही कॉन्सेप्ट यूज़ किया जाता है सी हैरियर के अंदर. तो जो जेट है जो आपको फॉरवर्ड थ्रस्ट दे रहा है, उसी को हम एंगल वाइज चेंज करते रहते हैं धीरे धीरे, और फाइनली 90 डिग्रीज पे लेके आके उसको बिल्कुल वैसे ही यूज़ करते हैं जैसे कि आपने नॉर्मल रॉकेट देखा होगा ऊपर जाते हुए दिवाली वाला रिसेंटली. सो हम उसको वैसे ही यूज़ करते हैं, लेकिन यहाँ पर हम उस थ्रस्ट को कंट्रोल करके एयरक्राफ्ट को लैंड करा सकते हैं और टेक ऑफ भी करा सकते हैं. सो दैट वाज अ कॉन्सेप्ट दैट द ब्रिटिश स्टार्टेड. तो इसके बहुत सारे टेक्निकल बेनिफिट्स भी थे, कि जैसे कि आप देखेंगे कि किसी भी वॉर में सबसे पहले रनवे के ऊपर हमला होता है कि रनवे को डिस्ट्रॉय कर दो तो इनके एयरक्राफ्ट उड़ नहीं पाएंगे. लेकिन ये तो बहुत ही शॉर्ट डिस्टेंस पे उड़ जाता है, तो अगर आप रनवे को डिस्ट्रॉय भी कर देंगे तो उड़ जाएगा और लैंड भी कर जाएगा.
तो किसी भी प्लेन जगह पे उतार सकते हैं,
बिल्कुल.
रास्ते पे उतार दो, कहीं खाली जमीन में
Exactly. So it was a very versatile aircraft, and the concept was amazing, and which British gainfully utilized during Falkland Wars. So
I can hear MI-26 going.
correct.
That's MI-26. Yeah.
28.
28.
So what happened is that when they tom-tommed this aircraft during Falkland War, its prowesses wherein they really obliterated Argentinian Navy, India took a note of it, and India was looking for another aircraft after Seahawks, which were initially bought along with the first aircraft carrier INS Vikrant. They were getting old, so their replacement was being looked at, and we found Sea Harriers to be apt, fitting within our budget as well and our requirement. So they were inducted into the Navy, and it's an amazing aircraft to fly, but unconventional.
So where did the conversion happen, sir, after helicopters? There in Hansa.
Yeah, initially the conversions used to happen in United Kingdom at a place called air station, Naval Air Station, Yeovilton. But subsequently, once we trained our own qualified flying instructors, we started converting people in India, because we had purchased trainers as well along with the fighters.
What's the difference between a trainer and an operational?
Our trainer is a two-seater aircraft, wherein the student sits in front. He's got all the controls, the environment, cockpit environment exactly as the fighters, minus the radar, because that space has been utilized to put another seat. So he sits there, instructor sits at the back, and the aircraft behaves just like any other normal fighter. So when he's flying, he doesn't get to know unless person behind the instructor tells him that, oh, here you are wrong.
सर चमाट पड़ता होगा ना कॉकपिट में?
कहाँ, बीच में पार्टीशन है. That used to happen in the Air Force Academy when you're sitting side by side. So I had to see some of my counterparts coming with a little bruised arm because he was given one toad. But that's all done in good faith because at times words don't affect you much, but that kick remains with you for entire life. In that kind of situation, that kick will save you.
Yeah, the muscle that remains. Yeah,
right.
That's why they put you through physical pain in the training academies also, that you can remember.
Exactly.
So, sir, then now you got converted in INS 300.
Then I got So after the training in INS 551B, which was the training squadron initially, ad hoc training squadron, which was created out of Kiran squadron. So I got posted to INS 300. From INS 300, after doing my DLQ on board Vikrant, we did some operational tenures. And then they found me suitable enough to become a qualified flying instructor. So I was sent to Air Force again. And this time I went to Air Force Station Tamram, where the flying instructor school is. And that's where we flew Kirans again for 6 months, learning as to how to train, how to speak, also learning the psychology of a student in a very constrained and difficult environment. Everybody's got a different psychological makeup, so in case you want your student to succeed within the allotted syllabus, one needs to understand them thoroughly. And your method of teaching has to be accordingly tailored. And this is the place where I had my another emergency, the fourth one. So we were flying, I was flying with my instructor, who was a transport pilot. I won't name him. So luckily in the naval environment, since I was an aviation cadet, I had more hours on Kiran's, more experience on Kiran's than he had. He was coming from a transport stream, so he had less number of hours. But of course, he was more experienced and worldly wise, I would say. So we were flying, and I was demonstrating him as I would demonstrate to a student as to how to fly a particular maneuver, which was supposed to be a hard turn. If you remember, I was talking to you about that turn hunters where the aileron locked. So here it was Kiran, and I was teaching him a hard turn. Once again, a turn to the same side. And lo and behold, suddenly I found heavy vibration and boom. I quickly looked at the instrument because you're looking outside while turning so that you know which direction you are turning and maintaining level. So I looked at the instrument and suddenly found the engine temperature going up and engine RPM winding down to 0. I said, how can that be? That the engine temperature is going up, but RPM is going down. I realized that probably it has got to do with the engine seizure. That is, the engine is stopped, but the burners are still burning. So I quickly stopped the engine, cut the power, and there was no engine. Now, I took all these actions, which were actually supposed to be taken by the instructor. He's supposed to take over because he's the captain of the aircraft. He's supposed to take over and take all these actions and thereafter land the aircraft, if possible, or eject. Now here in this case, I was closer to the base, and I said, sir, we can glide and make a dead stick landing, and we'll be making our key points at so-and-so height, so-and-so height, so-and-so height. But before that, let's check our rate of descent so that we are sure. Because rate of descent changes if your engine is jammed. It becomes more. So engine was jammed, and we realized that rate of descent is more. We recalculated again, and lo and behold, we came and landed. We landed, and there was no problem.
Just like a glider.
Just like a glider. And once we landed, then we realized that the engine had broken into two.
Oh.
There is a quill shaft in between. So there is a hot end and there is a cold end. Cold end is where the compressor is sucking in air, and then after it's going to hot end to burn. So in between there's a quill shaft which broke. Why? Because the hot end got jammed. So that was the reason why the aircraft behaved the way it behaved. But had we not stopped the engine for maybe 30 more seconds or some more a minute, it would have caught fire at the back. So that was the risk we avoided by taking actions timely. And so that was my fourth emergency. But
सर बट ऐसा होता है क्या कि लाइक यू आर कमिंग फ्रॉम डिफरेंट एयरक्राफ्ट्स, तो अलग अलग एयरक्राफ्ट पे क्वालिफाइड लोग आ रहे हैं टू बिकम अ QFI, बट दे आर टीचिंग यू हाउ टू टीच, बट यू आर क्वालिफाइड ऑन अ डिफरेंट एयरक्राफ्ट.
exactly. So what happens is that these people who have become already QFI and taught in their own squadrons, they come back to teach ab initio student who wants to become an instructor. Why? Because they have teaching experience and teaching methods they know. So there is a syllabus for it. So they may not have too much experience on the aircraft, but the teaching methods are there with them. So I'm sure
If you become a QFI as a Sea Harrier pilot, but you have an experience of, let's say, flying a MiG-21, and if you are a QFI, can you still coach a student who's coming in to learn MiG-21 or probably MiG-29s?
So what happens is that QFI is a degree, I would say, which can be applied to any aircraft for that matter. So in case you want to teach on that particular aircraft, you have to first convert onto that aircraft. Then you have to fly with an experienced QFI of that stream who will clear you to instruct on that particular aircraft. There is a syllabus for that, small capsule. So let's say today I qualified on Kiran, like I did in the FIS. So I went to Bidar thereafter and flew Kirans with the students and taught them how to fly Kirans. Then I came back to Sea Harriers, and here I was given a small capsule as to how to teach on Sea Harrier. But basic knowledge of teaching was already there. So you develop your own way of teaching in the given syllabus, in the given methodology, depending upon the kind of student you got and how to handle him, to make him learn and understand all the nitty-gritties of flying a particular aircraft. So then I started teaching on, after that capsule, I started teaching on Sea Harriers.
Okay. So then, sir, you went back to squadron after QFI?
After QFI, I went back to the squadron, INS 551B.
B. Okay.
Yeah.
So did that time, sir, did the squadron have Sea Harrier ka simulator by then?
It had.
It had.
It had Sea Harrier simulator, and there is a syllabus which is tailored so that a student is given basic understanding on simulator before he's taken onto the aircraft, because it's cheaper to train on and safer to train on simulator first.
Yeah, I saw the simulator. I've been there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful simulator.
The-
Now no more.
Wow.
And you can record the entire sortie. You can record and replay.
Yeah.
So he sees it and knows exactly where he made mistake.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful device.
Yeah. Then, sir, after this?
So after the instructor's course, I did a small tenure in the squadron, and then I got a sea time for my mandatory executive requirements. तो मैं चला गया कहाँ पर? पोर्ट ब्लेयर, and that was INS Maheesh, amphibious ship where I was XO. So amphibious ship, जैसे कि आपके दर्शकों को बताने के लिए कि एम्फीबियस शिप, आपने देखा होगा सारे शिप सी में रहते हैं और सिर्फ उनकी जो जेटी होती है जहाँ पे वो किनारे आके अपने पैसेंजर्स और लोड को अनलोड करते हैं या लोड करते हैं. लेकिन एम्फीबियस शिप जो होता है हमारा, वो हमारा शिप किसी भी बीच के ऊपर घुस जाता है ना, जो कि बाकी शिप पास में भी नहीं जाना चाहते, क्योंकि उनके पास वो फैसिलिटी नहीं होती है कि एक बार बीच पे घुस गए तो वापस कैसे निकलेंगे. लेकिन इन शिप्स में वो कैपेबिलिटी होती है. इनके काफ़ी पावरफुल रिवर्स इंजन्स होते हैं और इनके पास एक रियर एंकर होता है. उसके ऊपर आप शिप को खींच के वापस सी में ले जा सकते हैं और फिर आप सेल कर सकते हैं, जो कि नॉर्मल शिप नहीं कर सकते. So this was amphibious ship where I was XO. So I did one tenure there, and then again.
Did you do beaching, sir?
Oh, lot many beachings.
With
Number of army personnel, their tanks, their APCs.
which brigade, sir?
This is 108 Mountain Brigade in Port Blair, and they used to get 91 Infantry Brigade elements for the training.
So APCs, BMP2s and all that.
BMPs, yes.
It's very interesting because I've also been on LSTL. So they called as landing ship tanks,
Correct.
large class, large engine M also, medium
Correct.
class. Very interesting beaching operation, the way the beaching is planned. The moment you're hitting it and वो एक हल्का सा ऐसे झटका लगता है कि okay fine now you have beached, then there is an order to open the front door, doors खुलेंगे और सारे BMPs and vehicles they get into the flooding होगी, जानबूझ की flooding होती है in that compartment.
Yeah.
And these ships, they are tumble homes.
Yes.
Unlike warships, which are flares, because they want high maneuverability and high turning speeds, and the speeds are very high.
Correct.
But these ships are tumble homes. They are like curved niche se. They are not like a flare, so the maneuverability is less. But the capacity to carry passengers and equipment, that
That's
volume
phenomenal.
is phenomenal. You can make a lot of difference.
Yes.
I mean, that's how I think most like the Omaha Beach, the Omaha Beach war.
Yes, of course.
Omaha Beach, the beaching ops.
Normandy.
Yeah, Normandy, the Battle of Normandy, the Normandy landings. So, sir, then how long was this, sir?
This was for 1 year, and we did number of beachings. And since one is in the environment of unconventional aircraft flying, so thinking also become a little unconventional. तो मेरे दिमाग में खुराफात होती थी, अगर इसको ऐसे करते हैं तो ऐसे क्यों नहीं कर सकते हैं. But then I was only 2IC, it means I was XO. I had to go by the word of mouth, what command is given by the captain. But it was always there in back of mind, one day when I get a command, probably I'll try this. Anyway, so as the luck would have it, after that I went back to the squadron and did my instructional tenure.
This was during which year, sir?
This was during 2000.
2000. And that's the
2001.
time Parakram came. Parakram happened.
Parakram came.
2001.
Correct. So I was due for going for a staff college, which is a mandatory requirement for higher rank. But then Parakram happened, and I was one of the few qualified pilots who could fly dark night. Now, dark night flying overseas is something that you experience when you are in a hotel room. I mean, checked in a hotel room at night, and thereafter slept off, and the middle of the night slept off with all the lights off. Okay, in the middle of the night you want to go to the loo, and once you get up from the bed, you don't know where is what, because nothing is visible, not even your slippers. So it's something like that when you're flying at sea at dark night. So you don't see anything, and you don't know where the ground is, where the sky is. So everything is on the instruments. So relying on the instruments. If the instrument fails, you're going to John Davies' locker, which is the bottom of the sea. So, but that's very challenging, especially when you don't have any automation with respect to autopilot or height hold, they call it partial autopilot. So once you don't have that, it's very challenging. That means got purely skills of the pilot. So I was a dark night qualified pilot at that point in time.
Less than 10 in the Navy. Less than 10. This is
Less
very
than
important.
10. And I was commanding the training squadron.
Yeah.
But still, for Parakram, they inducted me into the operational squadron. And they said, please, you will be going for a deployment. You are one of the night assets for us. So we sailed for the Parakram deployment on board Virat.
Sir, even during the day, the flying is not straightforward at Sena, sir?
Yes, you can ask any Air Force pilot. I'll tell you. Because when he flies, he sees trees, he sees roads, he sees fields, he sees hills. When you are flying over sea, you see nothing on the water, and at times, depending on the condition of the day or lighting of the day, both sky and sea merge.
Mm.
So that causes a lot of disorientation, especially when you're doing combat over sea.
Mm.
So over land is very easy. You can see where the land is, where the sea is, or where the sky is. But over sea, there's nothing.
Everything is blue.
There's no tree.
Mm.
So you turn on time. That means you know the rate at which you're turning. By this time, you would have turned 90 degrees.
Mm.
All that gets ingrained in your brain when you're turning. So when you're flying, let's say 2 versus 2 combat mission over sea, unlike land, you have no reference features. So all has to, relative position of all 3 aircraft other than yours has to be in your brain with respect to time. So that teaches a lot.
Yeah.
Very different from what the Air Force guys do.
Yeah, that's where the eccentricity is thoda sa extra.
Yeah, of
Naval
course.
fighter pilots.
Got to be a little crazy to get into these kind of environment.
Too much crazy stuff. So, so then Parakram, you were into some kind of an operational exposure for Parakram.
Yeah, that was operational exposure, and we intercepted a lot of aircraft. But since there was no declaration of war, we didn't have to kill anybody. But we did intercept their Atlantics, Pakistani Orions, maritime reconnaissance aircraft who come and snoop on you as to what is your aim, where are you headed, the entire fleet is headed. So since we were the team who was doing the air defense of the fleet, so anytime we find them within 200 nautical miles from the ship, we used to track them and then jump at them.
So this was on Virat.
This was on board Virat.
Guys, also one more thing that I want you guys to understand is that unlike the Air Force, the naval fighter pilots are a bit different because the squadron is based at some place on a ground location. In this case, it's Goa because Goa is the headquarters, flag officer, naval aviation sits there. So the squadron has to embark. Squadron embarks an aircraft carrier, and when the job is done, the ship is coming back to the base port. In this case, Virat was at Bombay. So the squadron has to disembark because the normal aviation flying has to keep happening. The pilot has to stay in touch. Whereas the ship will go for its refit, maintenance, or whatever the ship has to do in the harbour, that will do. But the squadrons, they embark and disembark. And that's the beauty that they say that the ship has its bird.
Yes.
The ship has its bird.
True.
So,
and we call her mother.
Mother. So, so then after Parakram, sir?
After Parakram, my overdue staff college was given to me, that appointment. So I was there in Wellington, Ooty for 1 year. And after staff college, since...
Ooty is basically, sir, Master of Science in Defence and Strategic Studies.
Yeah.
MSc
Defence and Strategic
Studies. So teach a lot of higher level of strategy and operations, or I don't know.
Correct. Exactly. Basically, it's a small capsule course to upgrade your, or rather, broaden your horizon to various things other than only the aircraft.
Oh, that's the word I was looking for, sir. That when you're flying at sea, there is nothing like a horizon after some point of time. They merge, everything merges. And
because generally there is a haze over sea because water is lifting up in vaporized form.
Especially
so horizon may not be clear all the time. Very few times you'll find a clear horizon.
Yeah, especially when the sea is glassy.
Sea is glossy, yeah, of course. Then it reflects.
It reflects a lot. Yeah. I did that for some time actually.
The worst thing is that sun angle is such that the reflection is coming where the carrier is. So you see only a black spot. You don't see carrier deck because all around is a shimmer of the sun. So very difficult to judge your approach and the distance because within the shimmer there's a dark spot which is the carrier.
So sir, which are these instances when a Harrier pilot would choose to do a vertical takeoff? Otherwise, so you would be taking a takeoff from the ski jump.
Yes. So vertical takeoff is generally done in the cold environment where your thrust to weight ratio, यानी कि आपको जो upward thrust है और आपका weight है, it matches to an extent where you can get airborne through the engine. Now, in Indian environment, you can't carry too much of weight in case you are doing vertical takeoff. So we do ski jump takeoff, wherein we can carry a lot of weight, that is armament and the fuel. But vertical takeoff can be done with armament and fuel in the environment such as, I would say, United Kingdom or Europe, colder places basically, because that allows the aircraft performance to improve. Every degree of temperature gives phenomenal performance. So in our sense, we say that 1 degree, 100 pounds, you can carry more.
Okay. So, sir, what's the kind of armament Sea Harrier carries?
Sea Harrier generally carries, it can carry numerous number of items, including surface-to-surface missiles, your air-to-air missiles, air-to-surface missiles, air-to-air missiles, bombs, runway denial weapons, area denial weapons, guns, rockets.
That's hell lot.
I love that.
Anything with respect to anti-submarine, sir?
No, not at all.
Anti-submarine.
Unless the submarine is on the surface.
That's the skill of the pilot.
Yeah.
Don't worry. You come up, I'll find you.
True.
So, and then, sir, after this, staff college?
So after staff college, I came back and commanded a squadron. As I told you that there are only 10 pilots. So there's always a requirement. Otherwise, staff college के बाद में लोग वर्क जाते हैं headquarters में staff appointments के लिए. But since there are less number of pilots, I was called back. And I was commanding the INS 551B. Till such time, the order came that it will be commissioned as INS 552. So I was a commanding officer of INS 552. And
but sir, both those days, sir, the CO ka badge was not there on the uniform.
It started the day of the commission of my squadron. Admiral Arun Prakash was the one who started that. Yeah. So that is the day when the earlier commanding officer of the squadron used to be called squadron commander.
Correct.
The designation commanding officer came the day my squadron was commissioned.
Yeah, so that's the term which they generally use in the army and all. बहुत common है the commanding officer. We say captain कौन है, squadron commander कौन है. ये बताओ.
Correct.
That's more important. Captain of the ship, squadron commander of the squadron.
Correct.
Yeah.
So then it became commanding officer of the squadron.
Yeah.
So we after that tenure.
So you put on the first time the wings वाला CO वाला badge.
Correct.
उसके पहले COs लगाते नहीं थे.
Correct.
Star was to be.
Actually, these badges came much later. I was talking only about the commanding officer designation. The badges came much later.
Much later.
They came when I was CSO Air subsequently. But I had an interesting time in CRS as well, and few more emergencies that I can tell you about.
So fourth हो गया अभी तक.
Yeah, fourth हो गया.
Now fifth.
Or rather, 4 हो गए. So rather 5 हो गए. In fact, 3 on Kiran's and 2 on Hunters.
Hunter के 2 हुए थे. Sorry.
Yeah. So then when I was on a training mission at night, so we are taking off. Student is sitting in front. I was in the rear. Controls are with them. And in Harrier, unlike purely with the wing lift, we take off with half the amount of jet lift and half the amount of wing lift. That means at that point in time, if the engine power comes down, aircraft will hit the ground.
Go down like a rock?
Go down like a rock.
Okay.
So we were getting airborne. Just as we were getting airborne, there was a third sound and the fireworks behind. So I could see the glow. Quickly I grabbed the control of the aircraft and landed the aircraft immediately. What had happened was probably that later realized some kind of animal had gone into the intakes.
Oh.
Probably it was crossing the runway. At that point in time, it got sucked in by the engine power because of the full bore. And engine of Sea Harrier is notorious for sucking in anything which is on the ground. That's why we are going to be we operate from extremely clean environment.
FOD is very clean.
FOD is Yeah, it's very prone to FOD.
Fire object detection.
Foreign object.
Foreign object detection.
Damage.
Foreign object damage. Yeah.
So that was some kind of rabbit or something which had gone in and broke all the blades of the compressor turbine, and all the way flew off through the body of the aircraft.
Oh,
The engine was ruined, and so was the engine power. Luckily, we were at the height where we could land immediately. So mishap was averted. And thereafter, we switched off there itself and came back to the dispersal. My student was shaking. He said, "What happened? I don't know." I had the controls, but suddenly somebody snatched it from me and landed the aircraft. But yeah, nice experience. So that was the fifth one.
Fifth.
Sixth one was that I was doing air test of the aircraft. And
this was the same time when you were the...
I was the commanding officer.
The CEO, air test.
Yeah. So I was air testing the aircraft, and I was teaching one person as to how to do air test as well. Now, aircraft has small niggles here and there, but an operational pilot can handle those niggles. Like anybody's car will have some few niggles, and you continue to run the vehicle. So similarly, the aircraft also have few niggles which are known as a peculiarity of that particular aircraft. And we try to sort out in the next maintenance cycle because it requires probably a lot of work. But niggle is very small. So it had few niggles, and I had taken it to demonstrate as to how the air test is done. So we went through the entire profile, and we came to a certain engine performance regime where when he slammed the throttle, the aircraft compressor surged. Surge is the condition when the entire airflow breaks. Like you must have seen on the stoves. Anybody seen kerosene stove? In the kerosene stoves, there comes a time when you increase the valve and suddenly a flame will come out. It will not give you that nice blue flame. So something like that happens to the aircraft. And once that happens to the aircraft, there is a lot of damage inside, which we don't know at that point in time. So if that happened, and I had to shut off the engine because that's the only way you can minimize the damage. So now again, we were dead stick on Sea Harrier. Now, interesting thing is that the Kiran glides, and that's how we landed earlier. But Sea Harrier doesn't glide. And Kiran is cleared for dead stick landing, whereas Sea Harrier is not. You cannot land the aircraft without engine. So now I was in two minds. If it restarts, all and fine, although there will be some damage inside, but if it restarts, then only again land, otherwise eject. So all this while we were heading towards the base, and I tried attempting relight. First time it didn't happen. Second time it picked up because you have to come down in the height because air is much denser at the lower altitude, more oxygen is available. As you go up, oxygen reduces. So when we came a little lower, it picked up and thankfully came back and landed. So that was 6-1.
Is this the incident where you were awarded NM Gallantry?
No, that was the next one that happened last.
Okay. Again as a CEO.
Again as CEO. It was Sea Harrier once again. And I was flying a test sortie once again. So this aircraft had been built after an accident. An accident, it had broken a lot of parts of it, including controls and other panels. So it was rebuilt by the Navy, and now it had to be tested before it could be operationally flown. So I was doing the air test. So I had already done 2-3 air tests on that particular aircraft, and this was my maybe 5th air test. So you slowly take it to the higher regime of testing. So that's what I was doing, and so I took off, and immediately after takeoff, you are supposed to reduce the power and slam the engine to see as to how long does it take to pick up power again. So I did that. Now you are fully laden with the fuel because it's a 1 hour long sortie and you are heavy. And when I slammed the throttle did not respond. So there was no response. I said, shit, what happened? So I tried juggling with the throttle and see something happens, nothing. Then I tried to reduce the throttle, power got reduced. I said, I'm not going to reduce any further. I tried moving it forward, nothing happened. Now it was such a regime that power was only 60%. So it was such a regime where the aircraft cannot sustain in the air normally. So aircraft started descending. So I was at about 2,000 feet. And there is an industrial state, Verna, in Goa, which was right in front of me. Now I had two options. Eject, but I said if I eject, and I got full fuel, about 6,000 pounds of fuel. I said this is going to explode here, and where it will explode, who will go, I don't know, but people are there, I know. So I started steering. I said this is got a rocket ejection, so 0-0 ejection, and even if you are just about to hit the ground, you can eject. So I said I'll delay it. So I started turning away from that area. And in Goa, topography is such that sea level is not at the ground level, in the sense that the plateau is about 250 to 300 feet higher than the sea level. So I had that much margin also available. So I turned and thereafter came down almost to the ground level by the time I came very close to the coastline. So I continued turning onto the at sea, and then I realized that what if I start reducing my aircraft weight by jettisoning fuel. We have a system of jettisoning fuel. So I started jettisoning fuel while turning at jettisons at a very fast rate. So I started jettisoning, and by the time I came over sea, I could make out at very slow speed, but aircraft is able to sustain flight because now weight has gone down considerably. So I must have jettisoned about 5,000 pounds, or other, not 5,000, two. So it is about 4,000 pounds of fuel, which is quite a bit.
Considerable.
Which is about almost as good as 2,000 kgs. So aircraft became lighter, and now it is sustaining at 60% of our power. So I said, if it's sustaining, my runways are also at the same level at which I am flying. So can I make it? Let's try it. It will become lighter while I'm flying. So I attempted that and succeeded. So got back and landed the aircraft in the same configuration without doing anything. And thing is that once you lower your undercarriage and flaps, which is mandatory to reduce your speed and also to land, then the drag increases and your power requirement increases. So I had to be even lighter. So did that and lowered my undercarriage and flaps very close to the runway, so that even if the aircraft is not sustaining level flight, I'll sit down on the runway, maybe crash land on the runway, but save some part of the aircraft and self. So did that and succeeded. And whereas people are telling me to punch out, eject. But anyway, things panned out well, and I saved myself as well as the aircraft. So that's why people appreciated the maneuver that I did to save the facilities below me, risking both self and the aircraft.
That's why NM Gallantry came. That's definitely, this is something which speaks volumes about, क्योंकि कोई ऐसे पहले फौजी हमेशा दूसरों के बारे में सोचता है, खुद के बारे में नहीं सोचता है.
That's the beauty. That's what we are taught.
That's what we are taught, right, sir? So sir, does it like happens like this कि आप you will take a run up and then you will take off, मतलब land से also if you're flying with the squadron, and landing is but vertical landing always?
We teach vertical landing because it's one of the ways wherein we land on the aircraft carrier, and it's a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, but we use it in STOVL mode, which is called short takeoff and vertical landing. So ski jump takeoff is short takeoff, and vertical landing is of course vertical
So
landing.
you follow the same pattern in the base also.
In the base also, basically we fly conventionally. That is like a normal aircraft, and wherein you go forward and then have to pull back on the stick and get airborne. But we also do short takeoff in the sense that not only the stick, but we rotate the engine nozzles. So we got two controls. So we rotate the engine nozzles, so which will give you upward thrust, and we get airborne.
But landing is always vertical landing.
Landing is onboard carrier is always vertical landing. Here you have a choice. So depending upon our weight, we can choose to land vertically. We can choose to land conventionally. We can choose to land anything in between. That means with 30 degrees nozzles, with 40 degrees nozzles, with 50 degrees nozzles, that way.
That's the beauty of this aircraft, no?
Yeah.
And there are only 10, okay?
No, that 10 at a given time
10 at a
used to
given
be.
point. Yeah. But even the total number of Sea Harrier pilots would be very less, sir, qualified.
Yeah, very less.
Very
you can
less.
count on your fingers.
Yeah. Okay, guys, still less, very less. So, sir, then after this, sir?
So after this, I finished my tenure as a squadron CO and went for my sea time to INS Rajput as executive officer. And incidentally, INS Rajput was a ship which was fitted with BrahMos missile for the first time. So I was 2IC there, which is called executive officer. And since I was doing well, they considered me for another sea appointment rather than aviation appointment. So they gave me a command of INS Shardul. Now, if you recollect, I told you that I was thinking something conventional on word Maheesh. Now I had a chance to do that.
Yeah. So Shardul is also landing ship tank, large. Lima 16. And I am also ex Shardul.
Oh, yes.
Trained on Shardul.
So great.
And the same ship.
Yeah.
Same ship. So, sir, so while the BrahMos fitment was happening, you were there as XO?
No, I think previous XO had the BrahMos fitment done. But BrahMos were operationally available on our ship at that point in time. They were already fired.
So PMF had happened
initially. Before that.
During your tenure, any PMF?
During my tenure, no.
Okay.
That time they were doing some modifications and then they were retrofitting Ranveer with the launchers, vertical launchers. So that was happening at that point in time, but we didn't fire this missile.
So then, sir?
Then I commanded INS Shardul, and being unconventional flying expert, I would say, at that point in time, the thinking had also become unconventional. So I said, in conventional beaching, as I told you, that you drop your rear anchor and there have to come at slow speed and beach. So you are now, your bow is stuck here and your rear is controlled by anchor. But it all takes time. If you are in an enemy territory and beaching, so they say the attrition ratio is 1:3. That means if you kill 3 or 1 army person opposing you at the beach and they are there, they can kill 3 of yours. That's what army says when they are landing. So there could be times when you have to induct quickly and withdraw because bulk of the equipment is on board. So in that case, you cannot do that slow speed landing wherein first drop anchor and slowly creep in and land. So there's something called combat beaching, wherein you just go and land and control your rear with the engines.
So the rear anchor is not dropped?
Not dropped at all. Yeah. And while doing so, you're opening your bow door, allowing people to go out, supplies to go out, trucks and tanks to go out. And immediately withdraw if there is a hiccup. So we did that and we mastered that to the extent that we could do it with comfort anytime, day or night. And at a given point in time, that means if you say now, that's the time we'll beach and open. While beaching, we'll open the bow door and lower the ramp. So our team had reached that perfection. So I'm thankful to my team, which made this happen. And probably that's the reason that 91st Infantry Brigade, which was there with us doing the amphibious training, they were so happy and they did so well in their amphibious operations that their brigade commander rose to the rank of Army General. This was one of the springboard. Army Commander.
Yeah. Nice. Because after as Chief Operations Officer also you can fly, like you mentioned. फिर उसके बाद sir, after
thereafter I again continue to fly as President Aircats, because again though it's a non-flying appointment, but I wanted to maintain my rating and everything.
This was in 2000?
This was in Aircats was in 2000 to 2010.
10. We had already started talking about Vikramaditya then.
Yeah, so when
and Bidar was decommissioned.
So the person who was my 2IC, he was nominated by me for being the first commanding officer of the MiG-29 case. So he was sent to Russia.
Okay.
And while I was doing my other C appointments, etc., or other my higher command course, he was doing the training in Russia. And while I was doing my tenure as President Aircats, that's the time the carrier, the Vikramaditya, was commissioned and it was heading towards India.
Admiral Suraj Bedi. First CEO.
Yeah. So he was captain of the aircraft carrier and my 2IC was the CEO of the squadron. And since I was one of the experienced QFI and also the President Aircats at the same time, they found it apt to make me the head of the team to integrate MiG-29 case with the Vikramaditya in Indian environment.
And the squadron was INS?
INS 303.
So 300 was Sea Harriers?
300 was Sea Harriers.
Then they made 303.
303. In Indian Navy, all the squadrons starting from 3 are called operational squadron.
Correct.
And the ones starting with 5 are training
squadrons. Yeah. So then, sir, you were the cardinal person to get this thing inducted.
So I was not a cardinal person, but yes, I was a facilitator to make sure that everything is safe, hanky-dory. They are having their SOP developed, procedures developed, training done of the deck.
Very humble of you.
In the Navy and everywhere, I think it's a teamwork.
Yeah.
One person cannot do everything. So it was a good team and
the influential leadership.
Yeah, of course, that has to be everywhere.
I think we are taught that thing right from the day one. Influential leadership.
Yes.
Not so autocratic, but though.
There are chances. I won't say that. Leadership qualities, everybody has got different. And there are very many qualities of leadership, as you know. Where to apply which one is the key.
Yeah.
So, not everywhere in Fauj you could be a democratic person.
Do you believe, sir, that leader is a leader? It's just a tone and tenor which changes your leadership style most of the times.
When you read psychology, you must have read as a GTO. So, a core psychology of a person which is developed over a period of years cannot be altered too much through training.
That's correct.
So, that core remains with him. It's like your medulla. And it'll remain there with you. When it comes out and does something right or wrong is a matter of perception and matter of advantage as well as disadvantage. So one can alter or learn about psychology and alter his personality to suit the requirement. But yes, basic core remains the same. That's why you'll find there will be certain leaders who will be called autocratic, some are democratic, some are lenient, some are liberal. But in military, every time it doesn't work. So one has to choose. You should have all the attributes and you should know as to which condition, which type of leadership is required to be used.
So, sir, then mix came And
Next
that's
time.
the time do you guys decommissioned Sea Harrier?
They operated together for some time, and once they were into the harness, in the sense they were operational in all respects, that's the time Navy decided that we must let them go.
So you flew MiG-29s also?
I flew in the sense that I flew experienced sorties, but not as a operational pilot.
Did you get a chance to land on Vikramaditya?
Oh, yes, of course. I was
In
in
mix?
that team, no? So I had
Mix,
to know, yeah.
Mix.
So I was in that team, so I had to know as to how does it feel and what are the pluses and minuses in case somebody is making an approach on the carrier
That's
and
an
something
arrestor.
goes wrong. So my aim was, since I was a team leader for induction, my aim was that initially when they start operations from on board, there should be no mishap. And if there is chance of a mishap, we should know what is the risk involved and how to obviate it. So for that purpose, I had to fly with them. So what happens that in order to learn something on the aircraft on which you're not qualified as a pilot, we have a way that we fly in the front cockpit, and we, through our experience, we can fly the aircraft once it is airborne, and also we can understand as to what's happening, and we can give value inputs based upon our previous experience as well as the knowledge that you have accumulated over the years, which can be applied on this particular aircraft. So likewise, I have flown MiG-21s, Jaguars, Mirage 2000, and also Su-30s for air-to-air refueling practice.
Which was not there in the Navy initially, I believe.
Yeah, Navy had purchased the Sea Harriers along with the refueling probe, but for the large part of its operational tenure, we did not have air-to-air refueler. So when the Indian Air Force procured air-to-air refueler and they got comfortable with the operations, and the Navy also broached the subject that over sea, should there be requirement for us to extend our range, can we use your refueler? So they said, do you have the capability? So Indian Navy said, yes, we have the refueling probes which can be fitted on the Sea Harriers. And that's when they deputed me to lead a team to fly Su-30s where it was operational. And we learned the tricks of the trade on Su-30s and thereafter moderated and modulated to the requirements of the Sea Harrier and operationalized Sea Harrier for air-to-air refueling.
So it is so evident na कि unconventional flying कर रहे हो आप, because the aircraft is such. For you to fly a conventional aircraft is very easy, but for any conventional fighter pilot to come to a Sea Harrier, he has to go through a process. वो ऐसे होना नहीं पाएगा. It's not a plug and play for him.
Exactly.
So that means the skill set is very different as far as the Sea Harrier pilot is concerned.
Yes, within the Navy also, it's a very different skill set required, and for the Air Force also, in the sense that flying overseas is a different ball game, and the reason that, let's say you're flying over an area and you see a hill, at the same time you look at the compass, so you know that direction of the hill is, let's say, north. So you know that hill is in north. Now you're not looking at the compass, you're looking outside for the enemy and turning or whatever. Suddenly you see the hill again, your direction might change a little bit, but the distance that hill is still there. So you know that somewhere close to that is the north, right? Now there's no hill over sea. So everything is on your mind. So your mind has to generate a compass of your own. And you need to know, after doing all that rigmarole at sea at probably distance from the carrier as to where the carrier is.
Yeah, that's why they say, until and unless you don't fix your position at sea, everything is a chaos.
Exactly.
Everything is a chaos.
So that is one thing that happened. And then the Sea Harrier, by virtue of it being unconventional, we used to call it, there has to be a switch in the mind that you come into unconventional mode. Why? Because in normal aircraft, how do you land? And you must have seen simulators, etc., or movies also. The person is coming to land, and as he's coming to land, he's reducing throttle to land, right? And once he lands, he applies brakes, and that's it. Landing is complete at the end of it. Also in the air, when he raises the nose, the speed reduces and it starts going up. When you raise the nose of the aircraft goes up. And when you lower the nose, aircraft goes down. But in Sea Harrier, it doesn't happen once it is in unconventional mode. In unconventional mode, when you are landing, here the throttle is coming up instead of going back because your wing lift is reducing and you're relying more and more on your engine power. So as the speed is reducing, your power increasing. So in all types of landing except for the conventional landing, this is the unconventional thing that we do. Similarly, as we raise our nose, aircraft does not go up. Aircraft, in fact, goes down. Why? Because now when you raise the nose, your jet efflux, which was vertical, now it has gone beyond vertical. So vertical component is reduced. So aircraft will come down rather than remaining steady.
Sorry, sir. So, you can do a short takeoff and landing. You can do a vertical takeoff and landing, vertical landing. You can do a conventional takeoff and you can do a conventional landing.
Yes.
It is there in the mind of the pilot which particular course I need to choose. That switch has to. That's the switch you're talking about.
The switch is that from the conventional mode of flying, you are now into unconventional regime. So things will happen differently. That has to happen.
And that adaptability has to happen as per the situation.
Exactly. And within that, you should be able to handle the emergencies because any emergency can happen during that time. So you cannot leave it to your muscle memory. It has to come consciously.
Conscious, yeah. Sea Harrier pilots are very different, okay? Very different. One is sitting here. Okay, so then, sir, after 29s got in, and then Sea Harriers went out.
Thereafter, Sea Harriers were
and you were President Aircats.
I was President Aircats that time, and then by the time Sea Harriers went off, I was CSO Air, Chief of Staff Officer Air in the headquarters of Naval Aviation, 2IC. And then subsequently after that tenure, I became CSO Aviation Training, wherein I was looking for the aviation training from sailor to the officer, technical training of technical officers as well, everything. And followed by this time, my career in the Navy was coming to the end. So they asked me as to what would like to get appointed as. Since I started my touch with the military as NCC cadet in my school days, I said, is there any NCC appointment? So they said, yes, we are looking for somebody to head the NCC organization of state of Odisha. So would you be interested? I said, of course. So I started with the NCC and finished my tenure as a service officer.
Full circle.
Yeah. As a DDG NCC Odisha.
जिंदगी बहुत वो होता है ना सर, जबकि फुल सर्कल होता तो
Exactly.
Like I cleared my SSB from NSB Coimbatore and I became a GTO at NSB Coimbatore. It's a full circle.
Yes, of course.
And it's mysterious ways the life will play with you. You speak to any फौजी ना तो कहीं ना कहीं पे वो full circle होता है उसकी life में.
Exactly.
Mysteriously it happens. So then sir, so you were DDG.
I was Deputy Director General.
NCC Odisha.
NCC Odisha.
So what happened sir there? Anything specific?
There, if you recall, जैसे मैंने आपको पहले बताया था ना कि मैं हिंदी मीडियम में पढ़ा लिखा हूँ और शुरुआत मेरी बहुत ही हिंदी मीडियम से रही और there were challenges and there was something which was pinching my heart. What happened was that जब मैं जूनियर डिवीज़न जिसको बोलते हैं जो स्कूल्स में एनसीसी होती है फॉर ए सर्टिफिकेट, so I was selected for to represent the shooting team of NCC as a cadet there. But when I went for interview for selection for Republic Day Parade, which is the high point in the NCC, if you get selected from the state for the Republic Day Parade, they didn't even entertain me for the interview. So I stood outside, wasn't even called, and later I was told that we are looking for the guys from the English speaking schools or English medium schools who could converse in English, so that they score more marks in the Republic Day competitions, which happen, Republic Day parade competitions, where the interviews and the debates, etc., happen between the various state representatives of the NCC. And based upon that, they get the ranking and the banner. So whichever state comes first in all events gets the banner. So that pinched me quite a bit. And that's when I started learning English through whatever mediums I could get my hands on. And ultimately, when I became DDG, where I could make a change, I realized that the guys who are going for the Republic Day parade were all from big city, English medium schools or colleges. And the guys, if you remember, Odisha is mostly a tribal state.
Yeah.
So, except for the few pockets and the few cities, generally people are from the Naval regions and mostly tribals. So there was no representation of the cadets from those areas, and they used to be very hardworking, very motivated guys. But the only place they used to get less marks was in their oral communications. So we didn't have wherewithals to improve that. But we started improving their oratory skills, not in English but at least Hindi, because they're all speaking Odia. They're all from Odia speaking schools and colleges. So it was a difficult challenge, because everybody in the organization wanted us to win the banner, including all squadron commanders or area commanders who were under me, group commanders. They wanted me to win the banner by selecting those people, but I said no. There are different kind of competitions. You select people for their capability in those competitions, and therefore we were able to select people from all kinds of areas. That means we had healthy mix of people coming from the rural, humble background, who are very good in physical competitions, or other competition requiring physical attributes, such as running, drill, etc. But we had few from the English medium schools and colleges who were good in oratory skills, who could communicate better. So we had all kind of healthy mix. But this lowered our rank from where we were to a number of ranks lower in the general scheme of things or in the competition. But it didn't hurt me. My aim was to give them a chance, because they were the ones who needed that exposure to go ahead in the life.
Okay, so then you retired as a DDG, sir.
I retired as a DDG.
So, sir, I just wanted to ask one thing. When you were flying MiGs, so MiGs is arrestor hook landing, right?
Yes.
So it's a completely different experience.
It is.
So how do you get accustomed to that? Because it's not straightforward.
I just did a experience. I did not convert onto the MiGs, but it was a few sorties that I flew just to gain the experience as to what are the peculiarities of this particular aircraft.
And your 2IC was also there as a part of.
He was the CEO of the commission.
Yeah.
So I flew as a team for a safety team that was created. I told you, when Vikramaditya came to India, I was president of Aircats, and I was inducted as a team leader for inducting or the integrating the aircraft with the carrier.
Now, sir, the takeoff from Vikramaditya, again, it's a ski jump takeoff?
It is a ski jump takeoff.
Similar to taking off the Harrier?
Similar, but this is 2 degrees steeper. Because this aircraft has got twin engine and it's a heavier aircraft. So it required more upward push to carry more weight.
So we have MiG-29 Ks and KUVs.
Yeah, Cubs.
Cubs. So Cubs are, I think, trainers.
But I think operationally they are all capable of same things.
So, sir, let's say, so then 300 se Harriers chale gaye, and then MiGs came to 300.
Yes.
So Black Panthers 303 was the first. then White Tigers 300, then rechristened with
MiG-29s.
MiG-29s again.
So now 300 squadron has become a training squadron. Instead of operational squadron earlier with the Sea Harriers, it has become a training squadron.
The only training squadron with a 3 number.
Yes.
And that's a unique thing.
Correct.
I have some postmates for flying MiGs now.
I see.
So it was a wonderful time, sir. Reliving the entire journey of the naval career with you, your career, because it brings me also very close to, because I've been an operations officer. So we used to raise form greens. इसका एयर सपोर्ट उसका एयर सपोर्ट कौन आ रहा है क्या आ रहा है कोई जैम कर रहा है नहीं कर रहा सो एंड देन इन अ वेरी गॉड फोरसेकन लोकेशन इन when we made the board we tried to land CNS का helicopter but the obstructions were very many obstructions and somehow we managed to land. I'm a helicopter controller also.
Yeah.
So wonderful times, wonderful talking to you. So nowadays, sir, then why did you not get into civil aviation or something?
When I was president at Aircats and that time I was inspecting all kind of squadrons, helicopters, fighters. So helicopters I had flown, so I knew a little bit of peculiarities of the helicopters. But I had never flown a transport aircraft or maritime reconnaissance aircraft, which is a fixed-wing, large-bodied aircraft. So to learn about that and the peculiarities therein, I did start my studies for getting civil license. And I did take my civil license, but I did not use it to get a job. My aim was to get the knowledge and prove to everybody else that it's not a big deal to get a civil license. And so I did that, and my aim was that for the service, the 34 years of service that I was in, a lot of hobbies and a lot of interests of mine I could not pursue when I was in this kind of environment.
What are your hobbies?
Oh, very many.
Like?
There's no stone that needs to be unturned, so there's nothing that cannot be explored. And that's the quality probably. I was talking to you about that unconventional thought process. So on my final voyage out of Karwar Harbour, there's a emergency channel there between two land masses, which is very shallow. And nobody goes through that. It's called emergency channel, that something has to be moved through it, will be moved only in emergency. Since I was commanding an amphibious ship which goes into shallow waters very often, I said on the final voyage, I'll go through this. By the time my promotion orders had come already, and everybody in my staff said, "Sir, why? Why the risk? Everything is going hunky-dory. Why are we taking risk?" I said, somebody has to do it someday, It's emergency exit, people call it. And he said, no, we must take permission from higher-ups. I said, that permission will never come. Nobody will take a responsibility to put a ship through it when there's no emergency. But unless somebody does it, then people will then only consider as the emergency exit, no? So I told my navigating officer, I said, make a plan. And before that, I sent a team to alleviate the risk, that go and do the survey out there and so what is the depth. And we did that, and the final voyage was through that. So after that, I got a lot of knuckle raps from top as to why you had to do it. I said somebody has to write a report, no? It can be done and how it was done. So I wrote the report and presented it to my higher ups that it can be done this way. These are the limitations. These are the intricacies. But I did it. So there's an unconventional thought process. That plus combat beaching where no anchor is deployed, or a beaching in a water where ship cannot beach. The land is too steep. So the slope of the beach is too steep, you cannot land. So we developed a theory which was there in my mind when I was XO. So we used to drop two front anchors after dropping the rear anchor. So what happens that if you drop only the rear anchor and you are standing, or rather you are floating on sea, then the winds and tide take charge and they swing you here and there. If you drop one anchor from front, it will go and put you against it or away from it. Again, there is no control. But if I drop rear anchor followed by the anchor from the tide or wind side, and then I have to drift myself and drop another anchor, third anchor, and thereafter heave on both the side anchors in a manner that I fix myself in one direction. Now I am steady. Now the winds will not affect me, the tide will not affect me, nothing will affect me because I am the Shanku, as they call it.
Yeah.
So that is very useful in the situations wherein you are at a location where the ship cannot beach. But BMPs can go and climb onto that gradient. So that's what we did in Karwar. So we floated at about 1.5 miles from the coast. I came into that position, opened my bow door, and let out all the BMPs. So there were 15 of them floating, firing and floating, and going towards the beach. So there was a sight to behold. And thereafter, this concept became a standard that this can be done.
So you're setting standards.
Not setting standard, I mean unconventional thinking.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming to the set, sir.
Pleasure.
At such a short notice. And guys, I'm telling you, there is no podcast which has been made on a Sea Harrier pilot in the history of podcasting. This is the only podcast. Now, after this, I know sir might get called at some different places, but that's a different story. So, thank you so much for watching this podcast. Do like, subscribe, share, comment. We do take comments for improvements. And check out Olive Planet Premium Military Gear. I'm sure you'll find this stuff very interesting. Thank you.